Hello, I'm pleased to say that update 1.3 of Mr. Mannequins Tools is now ready for everybody to use. I've spent a long time working on this update because I've done a lot of groundwork for loads of new features and lots more to come. So in this update we've got modular rigging, which is my favourite. We've got animation retargeting. We've got improved import scripts, so it's more accurate. We've got new rigging, so I've gone over some of the old rigging and improved it to get rid of things like knee popping and elbow popping in the IK chains. I've gone over the whole user interface and made everything as I've tried to make everything more streamlined as I possibly can in the time frame that I had to do this, along with all the other work that I have to do. Normally I don't plug my Patreon straight away at the beginning of videos, but I'm actually doing a giveaway of this Mr. Mannequins shirt, which I'll pop up on the video there as well. I'm doing a giveaway of that for my second tier patrons. I've also started producing monthly free Creative Commons licensed assets for people to use. I'm going to be doing a whole set of combat animations, punching, kicking, weapon animations, all for the Mannequin, all for free for my patrons. So yeah, go check out my Patreon. Go sign up to it. It's only $3.50 a month and you're going to get the monthly asset. At the second tier, you'll get entered into quarterly giveaways, so that's 4 giveaways a year, and I have a secret third tier that's a bit more expensive than the other two, but will potentially reap much greater rewards. So yeah, keep an eye on that, and make sure you like and subscribe to catch all the other updates and all the other tutorials and animation stuff that I'm going to be doing over the next few months, because I've got quite a lot planned. So that's that boring intro, promote myself stuff done. Now, I want to go over a few things about this, because there's some stuff I just couldn't cram into one video. There's a guide for using the new retargeting and bone mapping system that's used by the modular rigging and the animation retargeting and stuff like that. So there's a separate guide video for that. You can find a card for it up in the corner there and a link in the description. And then there is also another video for the modular rigging, which is a little bit shorter, but kind of explains just how to use it. And again, that's another card up in the corner there, and another link in the description to get to that if you need to. In this video, I'm going to go over the bow and arrow mesh that's coming in this update, and I'm going to go over some of the stuff that's changed about the import and export, and just give a general overview of everything that's going on. So let's start with the bow and arrow. So let's load those up. Here is stuff from what I was doing before. We want the bow skeleton load rig. Here we have a bunch of balls. Then we want the SKFP bow LOD 0. We can load that mesh. We have a bow here. Let's turn on our materials so we can see it in all its glory. We have a bow mesh. Let's select the armature, go to pose mode, because there's some specific rigging to do with this that I'm going to have to go over in a moment. We have a bow, and it works really well, and there's a bunch of stuff to do with the arrow and the archer's paradox. So let's load up the arrow mesh too. Let's load up the arrow mesh here. I've had to kind of trick my system by giving the arrow a armature modifier in order to be able to save it into the stash. So I'm going to load the arrow, but I'm actually going to get rid of its armature modifier because it doesn't need to have that. And it should be copying the transforms of something, but it might be parented as well. We don't want that to be parented really. So let's clear its parent, clear parent as well. I probably should have ticked the parent to active, but unticked the parent to active button so it didn't parent there, but never mind. So this bow is still kind of a work in progress, but I want to give you a quick rundown of some of the controls so you kind of have some idea how to use it. This isn't going to be an animation tutorial. I don't have the time to show you how to use it. I'm hoping that you'll explore the rig and figure out how to use it for yourself. So the things you need to know are the maximum draw of the bow here. This bone wants to be copying the location. This bone, so the maximum draw is minus 0.6, that's 60 centimeters, so that's the max draw. We have the tracking target bone here, which you rotate around this axis like so, so that the arrow isn't pointing straight through the middle of the bow and clipping with the handle. Then as you fire the bow, you move it forwards, you can return the tracking once it's gone past, and you can swap the damped tracking to the other bone. So we're driving the damp tracking to make it seem as though the arrow is bending around the bow, like with the archer's paradox. The arrow, as you fire the arrow, it bends around the bow and then wobbles itself straight, so it carries on going straight. So that is roughly how you animate with this. So you get it to this sort of a stage, you've swapped that round. This then we would remove, we'd keyframe off the copy location, we'd go GY along its normal and pull the arrow off to a slight angle. Then we can clear the rotation on that bone and bring the arrow back to be straight at whatever point it should be at. Okay, so that's basically how you'd animate it. There's a few different places you can put keyframes in. I'm going to leave this up to other people to kind of figure out and how they want to do. But this is what I do with it. This is kind of how I animate with it. It's kind of technical. One of the best things about this bow, though, is that you don't actually have to animate it. You can control all these bones with Blueprint if you're clever and do all of these this simplistic animation using nothing but Blueprint code, Blueprint nodes, animation Blueprint stuff. Pretty basic, just to move this bone back to its extension and send it forwards. Maybe put some bounce interpolation on it there as it fires, and then you sort of spawn you do your stuff with the static meshes. You could even use a material in Unreal Engine to simulate the arrow warping around the bow and wobbling in the air. That'd be quite a clever thing to do. Something I might experiment with. You could add some spin to the arrow. Like you can do all sorts to this. Like there's a lot you can do to this. Yeah, you could add some spin to the arrow so that it spins around while it's firing, all sorts of stuff. This is the Mannequin bow. It's still a work in progress. I'm going to add rigging controls in it for it to the menu and stuff like that. Like I'm going to do a whole weapon system at some point, so this will get added into that, and you'll have all of these controls that are useful here, and like maybe some keyframing buttons and stuff like that. But yeah, this is the Mannequin bow. I'm quite pleased with it. I'm happy with the way it looks, although it's not perfect. It's not a finished thing. It's not a finished project. Not a finished product. It just does what it does. It has. I'm not entirely sure if this bow and this arrow come under the UE4 end user license agreement. I'm pretty sure the female Mannequin does, because she is very much a derivative of the Mannequin himself. She's pretty much him, just with a few vertices moved around, you know, like there's not too much difference there. With this, while I have made the bow and the arrow entirely from parts of the gun, of the first person gun, so they're technically derivatives, they are so very different they might not come under the EULA anymore, because I've done enough to them that they are now completely different things. They use the first person guns material and textures, but their meshes are so very different they may no longer come under that. So if they don't come under that, they have a CC BY license. That's a Creative Commons attribution only license. To give attribution, all you need to do is visibly credit me, Jim Cruvey or Mr. Mannequins Tools for the bow and arrow mesh. Other than that, you can do whatever the heck you want with them as long as you give me credit. So that's all good. That's the score with the bow and the arrow. Now I need to talk a little bit about import and export, because I've gone over all of these menus. A lot of stuff has changed. So there's now this bit up here where you can sort of toggle the display of the armature to show axes, whether it's in front of meshes and all that stuff, and how it's displayed. So there's that thing, and there's a whole bunch of options for other rigs which would appear in controls and in mapping, which will display to you different settings you may want to keyframe, depending on what you have selected. I'll come back to that in a moment. Let's go to object mode because I need to talk about the import and export. So you can now save import and export settings. So you can add your own setting here, say UE4 Mannequin, enter, click OK, and you can now select between the different ones. So UE4 Mannequin, we're going to want to export meshes to whatever folder I decide to export to, and we're going to apply modifiers, and we can go into the advanced menu, which is another new thing. There's one of these for the import menu as well. Go to the advanced menu and you can set a few settings here, like adding leaf bones and primary and secondary bone axis and the forward and up axis of the armature itself. If you don't know what these settings here do, don't mess with them. Just leave that advanced menu alone if you don't know what you're doing with it. Same goes for animation here. Yeah, so these advanced menu settings affect both animations and meshes. And this is now saved. This is our saved version of this export. If we go back to default, none of those settings have been checked. Go back to here. You can save it again and you can delete it and re-add it and do whatever you want with it. So yeah, you can sort of save your own settings for different situations nice and easily. And I've exposed more of the FBX import export options for you to mess around with if you need to, if you know what you're doing with them. So that's export. Import's a little bit different. We have more of my own settings here, particularly for animations more than anything. So if we're importing, we have cleanup. This will clean up stuff. Generally, I leave this off so I can troubleshoot to see what might or might not be problems. Because what this does is if I'm adding a root bone, I need to re-import extra versions of armatures and stuff for animations to get relative transformations and stuff like that. So this gets rid of all the flash. This gets rid of all the stuff that might get imported from the FBX that you might not want. So that's what the cleanup button does. If something goes wrong, try re-importing it with this turned off. Instead of on, turn it off, and yeah, you might see what's going wrong then. Importing user properties, you probably don't want to do that most of the time, but there are a few situations where you do. Ignore leaf bones. Again, most of the time, don't mess with these advanced settings if you don't know what they do. Also on the import menu, we have location, rotation, and scale. This is going to apply the transforms to whatever gets imported. You can turn this off or on. Generally, I apply everything when I import the FBX. I found that to be the most stable practice, though there are a few times where you might not want to. So that's the import-export menu. Scale keyframes is still there. Frame offset. Oh yes, use most host import. I'm not sure if this is working. So there's another developer called Most Host LA who developed an add-on called Bone Breaker, which is actually a very good add-on for its export. So before I released Mr. Mannequins Tools, I had no idea that Bone Breaker existed. Bone Breaker actually does a very similar thing to Mr. Mannequins. It can export armatures and animations and meshes that are directly compatible with the mannequin. I personally don't like the rigging that's used there. For animation, I couldn't animate with the rig very well. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. I've got my way, and my way isn't compatible with Bone Breaker's rigging. But it does have some really interesting export script stuff. And one of the very interesting export scripts it has is a separate add-on that Most Host has made, which is supposed to export and import animation curves correctly to and from Unreal Engine. So I downloaded the add-on to check it out, and I installed it, and I found the operator in its code which runs the export for it. So if you're exporting animation, you can choose to use Most Host import and also, I believe, Most Host export as well. There. Most Host import, Most Host export. Now, I did run some tests, and as far as I can tell, it's not actually working. So either I need to talk to Most Host or figure out what I need to do to get the curves going through his export. I have a feeling it's probably something to do with my control bones versus the deform bones, but I'm going to be working on this, and this will work at some point. If you have the UE4 curves add-on that Most Host has made installed, there'll be a link for that in the description, and there'll probably be a picture of it on the screen as well. So that's import export covered. I don't think there's much left for me to go over quickly now. I haven't made too many changes. I've just gone over the whole user interface. Oh yeah, the controls in pose mode. So let's get up the example that I did while I was recording the guide videos. So there's now a lot more keyframeable information being thrown at you when you select different things on the rig. So if I select an arm bone, we've got the controls for the twist bone, and we've got controls for the IK chain or the IK stiffness, everything you might want to set up there. So yeah, like loads more and different stuff. So yeah, that's about it for this video. Remember to go check out the video for the modular rigging up in the corner there, where I explain how you add your own IK chains and head tracking and twist controls and digit controls with these buttons here. They're nice and easy to add now, and they're all sort of separate from each other, and they don't pop at the joints anymore. So that's a thing. Go check that video out, because you can do all sorts with it. And then there's also animation retargeting, so go check out that video as well. I said it at the beginning of the video, I'm going to say it again now. Go check them out because they're longer, better descriptions of these systems that are really quite complicated to explain. So there's that, and the animation retargeting, the reason I can get this third person run onto this Mixamo character here with all my rigging. And I can also then retarget that to a completely separate armature altogether. So I can retarget parts of or all of that by mapping the bones together. So yeah, definitely check out the retargeting video. It's still a work in progress, but I'm going to be doing a lot more to it over the coming months, and it's going to become really fluid and really simple to use. So that's just a little example where I transferred the animation on this armature to this armature here, which I had created. We can hide those deformed bones that I put pointing everywhere for example purposes, and you can see that the arms are kind of doing the same thing. They're not copying, there's no location stuff going through because I didn't want location stuff going through. But yeah, that's doing what it's supposed to. There is going to be a more performance-friendly version of the import script for animations coming soon. Right now, using the anim to active thing, which is how I got, with the retargeting, which is how I got this animation onto this Mixamo character, using this is not as performance friendly as it once was. Before, it didn't take too long. Now it can take a very long time to import them because it's a lot more accurate and it's processing a lot more data. So that's just a quick word of warning. I would not start batching porting animations. It can take a long time. But I've been through this in previous videos. Before it could take a long time. Now it can take even longer. I think we've come to the point in the video where I say a massive thank you to these amazing patrons up here. Without them, I wouldn't be able to do this. While the amount of money I'm getting from Patreon isn't a huge amount, it's enough to keep me putting a reasonable amount of hours into this add-on every week. They're getting monthly free assets, they're getting quarterly giveaways, and they'll be getting even better things the more patrons I get. So go ahead and check it out and go sign up for that if you want to. And genuinely, if you're one of my patrons already, I love you. You're great. You're amazing. You enable me to be creative and do what I love to do and share that with everybody for free. So they're amazing people, and you should become one of them if you're not already. So like and subscribe for any updates I do. Please let me know about any bugs. There'll be a link to the Discord server, Mr. Mannequins Tools Discord server, in the description. It's a great place to get hold of me and talk to other people as well. And I will be able to cover... it's just a good place to report bugs. I'm quite active in there, and yeah, it's just a good place for it. Mr. Mannequins Tools is now also on Blender Market, so you can check that out. There'll be a link in the description for that too. I can't put stuff on there for free, but a portion, if you buy the add-on on Blender Market, 10% of the money you give me, 10% of the money I gets sent straight to the Blender Development Fund. Blender Market is also like the go-to place for Blender add-ons, so buying add-ons from there is actually a great way to support them too, and they are major contributors to the development fund itself. So yeah, Blender Market's a good thing, even though their commission rates are kind of sucky, unless you pay a silly amount of money every month. But I support Blender, I support Blender Market, I support all of this stuff, so I don't really mind too much. If you want to go there and get the add-on, some people just don't like Gumroad as well, so that's a thing. And there will now be better releases in the GitHub too. I'm sort of cramming everything into the end here. There will now be better releases in the GitHub, so you can more easily download the current version without having to worry so much about installing it and cloning it and stuff. So there'll be a version release that's easier to download soon. And that should cover just about everything I need to talk about in this video. Don't forget to check out the other guides for everything, and yeah, I hope you have a great day.